Today on the Tech Bytes podcast, sponsored by Fortinet, we get a custom review of Fortinet's SASE offering from Liquid Networx. And Liquid Networx isn't just a Fortinet customer, it also provides professional services for other customers of FortiSASE. So we'll talk about why Liquid Networx decided to adopt SASE, its evolution from on-prem to cloud-based security, critical features including SOC as a service, and adoption lessons that Liquid Networx has learned both firsthand and from the customers it supports. Our guests are Andrew Hammond, he is Director of Strategic Services at Liquid Networx, and Ramnath Shenoy, Director, SASE Products and Solutions at Fortinet. Andrew and Ramnath, welcome to the podcast. And Andrew, can you just give us a quick overview of Liquid Networx, what the company does?
Sure, Drew. First off, thanks so much for having us today. I appreciate being on. Big fan of what you guys do. So Liquid Networx is a strategic services company. We're focused on NOC services, professional services. We do SD-WAN, we do circuits. Really, we've been the kind of go-to focused on Fortinet technologies in the engineering space. So that's really what Liquid has been doing for really the last 30 years. And I have the luxury of running the entire team here and doing all things engineering for Liquid.
Okay, so what made you decide to move to SASE? What is it that you could get from SASE that you can get from, say, traditional on-prem deployments?
Yeah, man. So Liquid, like I say, I think probably one of our differentiators at Liquid has been that not only do we support a lot of companies that run Fortinet infrastructures, but we decided years ago to build our own Fortinet infrastructure. We believe you should eat your own caviar. So for us, we've got FortiMail, we've got FortiGates, we got FortiSwitches, we got FortiAPs, FortiManager, FortiAnalyzer, FortiCameras, FortiRecorder, FortiAuthenticator. Wow. So literally, we've got the entire Fortinet stack, right? And so for us, when we started thinking about going to a SASE platform, we looked at a couple of different options, but it made a lot of sense for us to kind of lean into the FortiSASE world, right? So I have a very distributed workforce. So my company is largely, we're all work from home. In COVID, we all went home and we've stayed 99% work from home. So wow, for me, that led us to, hey, I need a SASE infrastructure to kind of be able to have visibility. We wanted to start to implement ZTNA. We wanted to get away from traditional VPNs. We were largely managing our environment with EDR at the endpoint. And that was our visibility for our endpoint, work from home users. And so for us, going to a SASE platform made a ton of sense. That's really what led us down the SASE road.
So was it mostly about remote work then, as opposed to, I think a lot of customers are thinking, maybe I can do SASE because it'll cut down on some of the expenses of, running traditional on-prem gear?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think the beauty behind the Fortinet framework is they have FortiGates, right? They already have things to get in the middle of east-west traffic. They already have functionality for that kind of stuff. For me, SASE was really a remote work solution. Obviously, Fortinet has things like Thin Edge, which we leverage for some small locations. But the nice thing about the Fortinet SASE play is that it fits in with the overall Fortinet fabric. So you don't have to change your entire infrastructure in order to implement a SASE infrastructure. And for me, I'm an old school network guy, right? I don't want to go redo the entire world. I don't want to boil the ocean to have to go implement a technology that's supposed to be non-intrusive, but help me secure my environment. And so that's really what led me down that road is I want to use SASE for what SASE is good for. And that is that remote user type environment where the work from home piece.
What was more crucial to you? Was it the remote monitoring? Like, hey, performance is bad for me wherever they are, and you needed to troubleshoot that? Or was it more the security aspect, or I don't know, combo of both?
Yeah, here's the deal for me. I'm a professional services team, so I have a lot of engineers on my team, and they run their own gear, right? So most of them have FortiGates at their homes. They're doing FortiAPs and FortiSwitches, but they're also engineers. And so they can maintain their own equipment. But where my blind spot was really in my executives and my sales team and, my NOC, my entry-level people, the people who aren't experienced engineers and I still need to be able to provide security to them. So the visibility was a huge piece for me. Fortinet has the SOC as a service that's added to the FortiSASE platform. That was a big deal for me, having somebody watch over my end users on a day-to-day. I need my end users to be supporting my customers. I don't want to be supporting my own equipment all day, every day. So it just has to work, right? And so for me, those things were big pieces of going to SASE. The digital experience monitoring, that allows me to see what the experience of that end user is from their house or from the hotel that they're in or from the coffee shop. That means I don't have to spend a ton of time supporting that end user because I've got the tools to be able to see what they're doing on their endpoint. Those are big wins for me in the SASE space.
Now, when you say SOC as a service, Security Operations Center, what is that delivered like? What are you looking at? What are you engaged with?
Sure. Yeah, man. So forgive me, by the way, because I'll use a million acronyms when I talk about SASE, because I think it's acronym world in the SASE space. So,
it's one of the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. But SOC as a service for me, the big deal there is I actually run SOC as a service with FortiGuard, both on my FortiGates as well as on my SASE infrastructure. So they're watching security events on my FortiGates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they're also watching security events on my SASE infrastructure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That is, as Fortinet is, their security operations center is seeing events coming through and keeping an eye on what's going on.
Absolutely. And it might seem strange that a professional services company dealing with Fortinet stuff would do that. But as y'all know, man, SOC is hard. It's hard to see everything that's happening in your environment. And so for me, we believe security is a team sport. We think, hey, let's use the experts for where the experts are good at. And look, FortiGuard is some of the best. They've got a nice SOC infrastructure. They've got machine learning. They've got AI. They've got SOAR. They've got SIEM. They've got all the tools to be able to watch my events on a 24-hour basis. And so for me, that's somebody looking over my shoulder to make sure that my infrastructure is secure. And when you're doing professional services, just as a note, customers care about that. They care that your environment is absolutely locked down and secure and that somebody's watching. And so again, for me, that's a big efficiency win to have somebody else with eyes on glass of all my security events keeping me secure.
Are you using SOC as a service sort of primarily as like an early warning system? Like, hey, this is something you should look into, or are they also doing, response to incidents?
Yeah, so here's one of the cool things. I actually did it on my own computer the other day, believe it or not. My computer was acting weird, so I opened a forensics investigation with the SOC team and said, hey, can you go look at my computer and see what's going on? And so the nice thing about FortiSASE is it's a full SOC service. So you can do those forensics investigations of your actual endpoints, have them go run forensics on it and see what's happening. That kind of stuff I do on a regular basis with the SOC team. So it is, this happened in your environment. So it is reactive from a SOC perspective, but it's also proactive in that you can open those forensics investigations and have them kind of dive into your environment for you.
So when you did your SASE rollout for your engineering team and so on internally, what was that like? Was that like a big adjustment for you because of the infrastructure change? How did that go?
Sure. So it was actually pretty easy, to be honest with you. So here's what we did. Again, I'm going to use some acronyms. So in the SASE world, they have SIA, which is secure internet access. So for me, that was the first step for me. Was I needed secure internet access for all my people. So we deployed secure internet access. One of the things that Fortinet does a really good job of is it gives you options. Like I said before, you don't have to change your entire world to implement the solution. So for us, we deployed it first and we gave people the ability to disconnect. We gave people the ability to use a third-party VPN, a second optional VPN. So it gave them some flexibility while we made sure that what we were doing on SIA was going to secure them, but not cause problems.
So how does secure internet access work? Can you give us a sense of, are we talking about like a VPN, or are you just shunting traffic through like an SSE infrastructure to make sure it's okay?
Yeah, so what happens is that endpoint connects to a SASE POP. So Fortinet has SASE POPs all over the country. That POP is applying the full UTM stack. Honestly, what you would traditionally see from a FortiGate, that full UTM stack of IPS, AV, content filtering, the whole stack is applied in every one of those SASE POPs. So for me, it's like putting a FortiGate virtually in front of every one of my users quickly, right? Because now I've got the POP in front of all of my users with that SIA access. So that was our first foray into the SASE framework. And then once we got there, we decided, hey, you know what? There's other pieces of this we really could use. So we started doing things like ZTNA proxy. So Zero Trust Network Access is the acronym. And everybody wants to talk about ZTNA, right? So we started doing ZTNA proxy with it for some of our legacy apps into our data center, right? We started using a product called SPA, which is Secure Private Access. And Secure Private Access connects that POP to a FortiGate infrastructure. So it becomes an endpoint on your SD-WAN, right? And so that allowed us to connect our POPs into our data center. And so now our users, for instance, in my case, I have a staging infrastructure where I'm staging equipment for different customers inside of my data center environments, a secure staging environment. And so now my engineers can access that secure staging environment through the POP, and only my engineers can, because it's only allowed for those specific users. So the beauty to me behind kind of the SASE story is, we started with just SIA. We started with allowing people to disconnect and having secondary VPNs, but then we quickly moved to always on SIA, where it never disconnects. And then we moved to ZTNA proxy. And then we moved to SPA with our staging area. And then we even did some things like in our cloud applications, in our SaaS applications, we did conditional access, because one of the things that Fortinet allows you to do is you get specific IPs for your infrastructure. So what we did is we did conditional access and said, hey, you know what? You can't come administer our Office 365 environment unless you're coming through our SASE infrastructure. That's a huge win when you talk about security, because right now there's things out in the industry where people are hacking accounts and getting into your Office 365 and manipulating it. And so those kind of things, are quick wins. In my opinion, really the claim to fame of Fortinet SASE is that I did all of that without really disrupting my users. So I'm, as you can tell, I'm a little bit of a redneck. I believe that simplicity is security, right? And so for me, I didn't want to disrupt my whole world. I just wanted to provide extra security. And this allowed me to do that in kind of a stair-step way that didn't hurt my end users.
I think that's interesting, because this kind of architectural change could have an impact on end users, and you don't want that. But it sounds like you were able to take this, as you said, in stages, check this out first, see how it goes, see how users are comfortable with it, any impact on performance or whatever, and then move on.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, man. I mean, in my experience, and like I say, I'm an old network guy, but I've been doing this for a minute, and I know that if you mess with endpoints, you're going to get in the weeds, right? And if you've ever done anything on an endpoint, it all bets are off. You can get hurt in the endpoint game. And so for me, it was a big deal to be able to say, hey, look, I can't stop productivity of my end users. I need to be able to implement this in a way that provides security and, quite frankly, makes their job easier, so that they want to use the product rather than forcing them to try to use the product. Because y'all know as well as I do, when you try to force somebody to use something, they just find a way around it, right? Yep. So in this world, ZTNA is a really good example. That makes it easier for my end users to work. That SPA connection, now my engineers, when they need to go stage something, they just jump on their computer and run over to the staging area. Right? They don't need to go stand up VPNs and stand up, authenticate and do two-factor and all those things. They've already done it because it's an always-on connection, and they have access because of their OU and AD, right? So those are easy, quick wins that allowed me to really simplify my environment over time, that I don't think you get unless you have full control of your endpoints, right?
Right. So that was, Liquid Networx' own experience with SASE, but you also work with customers who are making this transition. Are there typical challenges you see when an organization is moving from sort of traditional deployments to SASE that listeners should be aware of?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I talk about SASE a ton. I talk about it to all of my customers. I talk about it online. I talk about it all the time, because I do believe it's the way the industry is moving. I think that's where we're headed, largely because I think VPNs are very outdated. I think ZTNA is the way that we're going to go. Zero trust access is important. But I think what I see on my customers and myself included is, when you start to combine the fabric of Fortinet, when you start talking about digital experience monitoring and the SOC as a service and the CASB functionality and the AV and the IPS and the web content filtering, when you start to add all of that together, Fortinet has a very unique approach in the way that they approach SASE. And quite frankly, they're probably one of the only ones that can approach it that way, because they have this entire fabric. And so for me, what I see in customers is they do a lot like what we did. They implement it, they implement it slowly, and then they find ways and the use cases that make sense in their environment. For me, I think anything that you deploy in IT, probably the long pole in the tent is getting it deployed and being able to support it, being able to administer it, and doing it the correct way. What I've learned in SASE, we typically do SASE deployments in about a week. It's not a super complex thing to get deployed and get started. And that's a big win. If you, I mean, I know Ethan, you've been a network guy for a minute too. Doing these kind of things and doing it that quickly that's a huge win in my case.
Well, you said a week, and I'm thinking about major deployments I've been a part of, and it's like, okay, a week is when you figure out what the meeting cadence is going to be for the next year and a half.
Absolutely, 100%, man. And that's the thing, right? It is one of those tools where you can start really simply, and then you can work your way into all the functionality. What I think is impressive is a lot of my customers are like, hold on a second, we got this deployed. We have a CASB. Like we really should probably start using that, right? Or we have a SOC as a service, and we're like, yeah, it's included in the product, right? And so those are quick wins for my customers. They're quick wins for me. So that's why I like talking about it. It's why I like deploying it.
So Ramnath, let's bring you in, and very quickly, can you just give us the high-level view on how Fortinet differentiates itself from competitors in the SASE market, because it is a very competitive market?
Yep, thanks, Drew. The first thing I want to highlight is around simplicity. So FortiSASE provides a very simple solution, and Andrew did mention that we are able to do this, the implementation within 1 week. With simplicity, we do have a very streamlined management console that provides configurations for all the different aspects of use cases within SASE environment. On top of that, the entire product runs on the same FortiOS, which we have been innovating for the past 20 plus years. And that's one of the key differentiators for us in this space, because we have been doing security and networking convergence well before SASE was really a term. The third piece would be the flexible connectivity. So we do provide, since FortiSASE is part of the broader security fabric within Fortinet, we do allow connectivity from users who have that agent, along with the users who are placed at those thin edge locations, which Andrew mentioned, like 40 access points or 40 extenders. So pretty much providing flexible connectivity options for users wherever they are. They can connect into the Fortinet SASE environment and get protected through our FortiSASE stack. So those three would be our key differentiators, Drew, that I see as we compare ourselves to the other vendors in SASE.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, simplicity built off the FortiOS, a single OS, and that flexible options for connectivity. So Ramnath, if folks are curious about Fortinet's SASE offering, FortiSASE, where should they go?
They should go to fortinet.com/SASE. That would be the place where they get all the details around the SASE that we provide.
Awesome. That's easy. Fortinet.com/SASE, SASE. We'll also have other links from Fortinet in the show notes that accompany this podcast if you want to go find them there. Andrew and Ramnath, thank you for joining us. And thanks to Fortinet for being a sponsor. Sponsors ensure that the Packet Pushers can continue to offer high quality, deeply technical content for your professional development for free. That includes a dozen podcasts on networking, cloud, security, IT strategy, and more, 2 newsletters, a YouTube channel, a Slack community, and even more. You can find it all at packetpushers.net. And as we say, too much networking would never be enough.